Hey everybody, Andrew Block, Goblin HQ Incorporated here. Sitting here, sleeving my brother's copy of Dungeon Quest Revised, and I had an interesting train of thought come up, and I wanted to kind of share it with you guys. This is completely off the cuff, not scripted at all, so if I ramble, I apologize. I have a tendency to follow rabbit trails when I talk on subjects like this, so be forewarned about that. It has nothing to do with Dungeon Quest, by the way. This just happens to be what I'm doing while I'm talking about this. So a buddy of mine is trying to get rid of one of his games, and when he was trying to get, while he's trying to get rid of one of these games, he had an interesting trade offer. Somebody was offering him a 100% complete copy of Eldritch Horror. And when I mean 100% complete, I mean all the expansions. So he's going to get everything for it. The only problem with that is that my buddy has never played Eldritch Horror, so he doesn't know if that's a good trade for him. All right. Now, for somebody who enjoys Eldritch Horror or Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, which I'll call Arkham 2, I use sequel naming conventions, you know, Arkham 2, Arkham 3, so on and so forth. So he doesn't know if Eldritch Horror is a good game for him. I've played Arkham 3 with him before. He's played my copy because he doesn't own any of the Arkham series of games. I own a few of them, which is actually kind of odd when I think about it, because I'm not a particularly big Lovecraft person, but I do own like almost I'm not going to say the entire line of Fantasy Flight Arkham games, but I own quite a few of the major titles. Anyway, so what I suggested to him, because I own Eldritch Horror and I own a couple expansions for it, I suggested to him, hey, you know what, before you make any decisions, you know, I know you didn't like Arkham 3 all that much. You know, you enjoyed it, but it wasn't a game that you would invest in. Why don't I bring over Eldritch Horror, and you can play it, and you can make a decision based off of that. So I brought it over, and we played it, and he didn't like it. Didn't like it at all. In fact, he didn't like it so much that we didn't even finish the game, and he texted the guy right after, and he told the guy, no, this trade is not going to happen. And that brought, and his criticisms for Eldritch was actually pretty similar to his criticisms of Arkham 3. There's too much randomness, and it felt like the game was playing you. The game was playing us. And this is a common line of criticisms that seems to be throughout the Arkham series of games by Fantasy Flight. There's other games where that's not quite so prevalent, like Cthulhu, Death May Die. It's not quite a big criticism that I hear. And it's because in other games like that are set in that kind of universe or that IP or whatever, the players typically have a little bit more control over the things that happen. They have a bigger mitigation factor. Whereas in the Fantasy Flight series, you don't really have a lot of mitigation over the things that are happening to you. So I 100% get the criticism that the game feels too random, and that it feels like the game is playing you. And because it's kind of true, the game is kind of playing you. Now, I don't know if it's because I've been desensitized to it or in some kind of sick way I kind of enjoy it, but I do like these games. It's probably why I own so many of them, despite not being a very big Lovecraft person. But I think it's more to the point that I simply enjoy the the cooperative nature of the Arkham series of games and the kind of craziness that ensues. Because despite whether you win or lose, hold on one second, despite whether winning or losing in one of these Arkham series games, you're bound to see some pretty crazy things happen. And it's going to be some crazy narrative. There's going to be some very interesting deaths happening, typically. And you're going to get some pretty wild things. And you're going to have some fun times with your friends. But more so to my point, see, I started to ramble there. More so to my point, I think the key to enjoying these games is that you have to kind of embrace that kind of nature. You have to understand that, yes, these games are going to play you like that, and they are random, and there aren't going to be a whole lot of mitigating factors. You're going to run into scenarios where you're going to have all the weapons that you need to do what you need to do. You're going to have all these cool-ass spells that are designed to make your character invincible and do all these cool things. You're going to have probably the best character in the game. But for whatever reason, whether it be that the action economy is not working in your favor, or you're just stuck on the other side of the board because you happen to be saddled with some kind of condition that prevents you from doing whatever it is you want to do because of a random encounter, or you're stuck doing something that you don't really want to deal with. That's the nature of the game. And you have to kind of embrace that. I think the key to enjoying these games, and something that players don't understand going into these games, especially new players who aren't really familiar with them, regardless of your knowledge of the lore, is that key, is that this is the nature of the game. These games weren't designed, I mean, they were designed to be won and lost, but that wasn't like the priority of the game. The priority of the game was to kind of immerse the player in the elements that are happening. You go into Arkham, Eldritch, and Mansions of Madness, and Unfathomable for the experience with the other players. You know, you're not trying to, I mean, obviously you are trying to win. You're trying to beat the great old ones or the ancient ones or whatever the hell they're called. But it's the things that are happening while you're trying to do that make the game fun. That's why the encounter cards are kind of the crux of every edition. You know, that's one thing that's stuck around in every edition of the game. In Arkham 2, you had the encounter cards. In Eldritch Horror, you had the encounter cards. In Arkham 3, you still have the encounter cards. And I bet in Arkham 4, and in Arkham 5, and Eldritch 2, or wherever it is they're going to take it, you're still going to have those encounter cards. And they're still going to have these story-driven little elements that are going to do things to the character, good and bad. And that's what makes the game fun and interesting. You're going to find yourself stuck in otherworldly dimensions trying to decipher ancient texts, trying to find your way out. You're going to find yourself in old libraries, you know, bartering for dark pact, which is going to eventually trigger during the game. That's going to cause you to sacrifice another player to advance on closer to your goal. These are the things that make the game fun, regardless of whether you win or not. That's my take on it. From what I understand about Lovecraftian lore, the idea that the game is playing you kind of fits with the lore. It's the whole idea is that it's a bunch of humans with mostly non-supernatural abilities, or not abilities, but non-supernatural talents, using their wits and their regular average day-to-day skills to do the best they can against unsurmountable odds that are just crushing them day to day. And that's kind of very thematic when you really kind of take a step back and look at it from a meta perspective, because what happens in a game that's playing you don't have a lot of options, and yet you are trying to beat the unsurmountable odds, which is the game playing you. The game is crushing you by throwing tons of monsters at you, advancing your negative conditions at you at a rate that you can't hope to surpass, and yet you're going turn to turn just trying to make it. And every little tiny victory you get, it feels like, yes, I'm getting one step closer to victory, until the end when you realize, oh, I wasn't, or damn, I was pretty close, but it was that one last encounter that screwed me over. I took a left when I should have taken a right, or if I had just made that die roll, if I had just gotten that one success, if I had just beaten that one monster, or if I could have just got that one piece of equipment. And I think that's kind of very telling. I don't know if it speaks to good game design. That's a topic for a different day. But I do think it speaks to clever game design, which aren't exactly inclusive or exclusive to each other. It does make for fun game design. Like I said, I think they're all good games. I don't know if I'd say they're excellent. I know there's people out there that say that Arkham 2 is probably the best in the Arkham series, and then there's others who advocate for Eldritch, and then there's a very small minority that say Arkham 3 is pretty good. I happen to be in that latter category. I think Arkham 3 is better than Arkham 2. And I think it's different than Eldritch, but I can see what it takes from Eldritch and from Arkham 2, and it kind of streamlines it and makes it kind of a more enjoyable experience for me. But that's a different topic for a different day too, so I won't get into that. But just to kind of reiterate, I do think that the key to enjoying these games is to understand what kind of game you're getting into when you play Arkham 2 or Eldritch or Arkham 3. And that is a game of insurmountable odds. I think that's kind of the best way to put it. You're playing a cooperative game where you as the player are kind of dealt the bad hand, and you are on the back foot trying really hard to gain the upper hand, and you just have to kind of go balls to the wall and try to do the best you can with what you have. And there's going to be turns, or even entire games, where it's just never going to be enough, even if you have everything. Now, there's going to be players that just don't like that at all. They are absolutely 100% going to think, well, what's the point? If I'm not going to win, why bother? And, that's fair. Why would I bother playing a game when the game has already stacked against me? Why would I bother? It's not fun if I don't have a chance. If I can't operate the game so that I can get ahead or see the finish line or anything, then why even bother? And that's a fair criticism. The game isn't for everybody. There are some people who need to have that kind of mindset, and more power to them. There are games that offer that. But I think it's fair that if you're bringing this game to the table, you need to make other players, especially those who are unfamiliar with it, aware that this game will probably make you feel really bad about yourself. It is a game that when you're teaching, you need to really make clear that even though there are objectives to be completed, and they don't seem that bad, they will stack and become worse. And like I said, you will be on the back foot. You need to, as a teacher of this game, to new players especially, it is your responsibility to make sure that players understand that this game is not easy to accomplish. And if you tell them it is, you are being an irresponsible teacher, and you're a liar. And it's not cool to lie to new players about things like that. That's not how you get players interested in games, especially heavier, more complex games. In fact, that drives players away. There's nothing worse than bringing what looks like a cool game to the table, opening it up, and it looks super complicated and it's already intimidating, and then you tell them, oh, don't worry about it, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience. Sorry, Ryan, I stole your tagline. And then they get into it and they realize that it's not only was it as complex as they thought, it's even worse because now they have no hope of winning. And you intentionally were deceitful so that you tricked them into playing this game. They're never going to come back, or at least with you. They're going to be like, no, dude, I don't want to play games with you. You lied to me. You told me that this game was easy. So don't do that. Be upfront with them. And this is kind of a side tangent about teaching complicated games. That's my side tangent on teaching complicated games. Don't tell them that they're easy or less complicated than they really are. Be upfront. Just tell them, yeah, this is kind of a complicated game, but I'm going to do my best to help you get through it, and also be forewarned that we're probably going to lose, because not only is it complicated, it's kind of hard. It's designed to be pretty hard. So, yeah. Needless to say, my friend didn't make that trade. Like I said, we didn't even finish. We got pretty close to the end, and as soon as it became apparent that we were going to lose, like there was no hope for us pulling ourselves out of the ditch, he was like, yeah, we're just going to call it. I'm going to text that guy, and that trade was off. And he was like, I'll probably never play this game again. He's like, I'd rather play anything else. And I was like, all right. It's kind of a bummer because I enjoyed playing it with him. So I know to keep my copies of the Arkham games at home, play with different people. I can probably con him into playing it again if I wanted to. If I could get the rest of the group on board, I bet I could con him into playing it again. Maybe not Arkham 2, because that one's a little worse. But maybe Eldritch, possibly Arkham 3 again. Mansions of Madness, I have a more difficult time. They're not, well, one of the players isn't really into the whole app as a GM kind of thing. I still don't understand that argument, but that's a whole nother topic. Again, that's like what, the 5th time that another topic kind of bled into this whole thing. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it. Just to recap the TLDR. To enjoy these games, you have to understand exactly what they are. And I'm talking about Arkham 2, Eldritch Horror, and Arkham 3. You have to understand that these games, even though they do have win conditions, it's really difficult to win them. You have to understand that the game is designed to play you, because that's in line with the theme. You know, the average Joe against the insurmountable odds. Okay. You have to make that apparent when getting into these games. So 3, when you're teaching the game, really make it crystal clear that the game is kind of complex, that not only are we up against insurmountable odds in the game that's playing us, our win rate is pretty low. If they're brand new players to this game series, it's probably going to be a loss, more than likely, probably 80-90%. Probably going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay. Don't worry about that. Just learn to enjoy it. And last but not least, in order to enjoy these games, you need to revel in the encounters. The encounters are the key to enjoying these games, because that's where the bread and butter lies. Use your imagination. Play it kind of like a role-playing game. You know, don't worry so much about the win and loss conditions, but just enjoy the moments that come up. You know, every encounter card that you draw, every monster that you face is an encounter and a moment that you can just have some fun with. You know, revel in that, because it may be your last. Anyway, this is Andrew Block again, Goblin HQ Incorporated. I hope I provided a little bit of insight. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. Like I said at the very beginning, I hope my rambling didn't get too awkward. I do have a tendency to follow rabbit trails, but hey, what are you going to do? Impromptu videos are like that. So I just want you all to enjoy your gaming experiences. I don't know when I'm going to put anything else out on my channel. I've got some backlogged playthroughs that I've got just kind of sitting around that need to be edited. I don't even remember what they are. I think one is Stardew Valley, which I've already got a couple playthroughs on, so I might not even do that. I may try to put something else on. I've been thinking about trying to put on, well, I don't know. I've got a couple things sitting around that I've been tossing around. The idea of playing. I'm thinking about doing a Batman the Animated Series Shadow of the Bat solo playthrough. I think that might be kind of fun. I thought about doing a Fallout the board game by Fantasy Flight. It's not the Warriors of the Wasteland or whatever, that not the miniatures battle game, but it's an adventure kind of style game by Fantasy Flight. I thought about doing a solo of that. That could be kind of fun. Maybe I'll go a little more simple and do a Disney Gargoyles The Awakening playthrough. That game is kind of fun to do, and it's very simple, very easy to watch and kind of follow through. So yeah, I do have ideas for stuff that I want to put on, but I haven't really had the time. The time I have in order to record things to put out is very limited because of issues that I have at home. I won't go into too many details, but just know that I haven't forgotten about my channel, but it's just I don't have the time because life gets in the way. But also, in the words of the infamous Ian Malcolm, both in the novel and the movie, by the way, life finds a way. Thanks for joining me, guys. Have a good day and play more games.